Hi, welcome back to CBSE Board Economics. I'm Saddam Hussain here. Today we'll discuss some typical questions that appear in the board exams, that is true and false questions. Here you don't have to write much. This question this is for 6 marks, it's divided into 3 parts. That means each part carries 2 marks. You are supposed to write maybe 1 sentence each. First you write false statement and justify why do you think it's a false statement, or you write it the above statement is true, justify with your answer why it is true. If you do not justify your statement, there are no marks for this, so be careful. Now look at this question here for 6 marks. It came in one of the all-year sample papers. They asked you a question like this: state whether the following statements are true or false. Give reason for your answers. State whether the following statements are true or false. This came for 6 marks. They've given you 3 questions here. That means each question carries 2 marks. You just have to, like I told you, you have to write true statement and justify why it is true. Write false statement, justify why it is false. Let's discuss one by one. State whether the following statements are true or false. Give valid reasons for your answer. Unplanned inventories accumulate when the planned investment is less than planned savings. Unplanned inventories accumulate when the planned investment in the economy, if the planned investment is less than planned savings. Put it this way, the planned savings, people are saving more than what is being invested. So here you put it, answers are given here. Ex ante investment is less than ex ante savings. That means savings in the economy are more than what is being invested. That's people are saving more. So what happens if they are saving more? So unplanned inventories accumulate. So this is a true statement. Unplanned inventories accumulate if planned investment is less than planned savings. So true statement. Why we justify it with our earlier knowledge in the economy? So I'll give you more idea about this. In the economy, at the equilibrium, we're seeing at the equilibrium level of income, employment and output, aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. That is AD is equal to S. We already know AD stands for C plus I and A stands for C plus I. C plus S, C gets cancelled. At the equilibrium level of income and employment, AD becomes equal to S. Automatically, planned savings and planned investment will be equal. That is ex ante saving should be equal to ex ante investment. Before the equilibrium level of income, output and employment were seen before the equilibrium, since aggregate demand is greater than aggregate supply, investments are more in the economy than what is being saved. As a result, output will increase, income will increase, employment level will increase, saving will increase till the point they both become equal. AD is equal to S and S is equal to I. If we go beyond that point, since there is full employment level, if you or people prefer to save than invest. Why? Because why the investments are less after that point? Because you won't be able to sell the goods. It will lead to accumulation of inventories, stockpiling, unwanted, unsold stockpiling. That is the question here. They're asking you the later part of the equilibrium. After the equilibrium point, what happens? After the equilibrium point, the savings will be more than investment. Why? Because unplanned inventories, unplanned. That's the question here. Unplanned inventories accumulate when planned investment is less than planned savings. That means planned savings, if the savings are more in the economy, all are saving, no one is buying the goods. So obviously stockpiling situation, that is it. If unplanned inventories accumulate when planned inventories is less than planned savings, savings are more than investment. So it leads to unsold, unplanned and inventories or stockpiling situation. So this statement is true. Ex ante investments are less than ex ante. So you write it. The statement is true because after the equilibrium level of output, employment, what happens in the economy, the savings will be more than investment. Hence, there will be stockpiling situation. Let's see the second one. Deflationary gap exists. Deflationary. One is inflationary, one is deflationary gap. when aggregate demand is greater than aggregate supply at full employment level. We have seen earlier, now I'll give you an idea. At the full employment level, if aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply, so obviously it is simple. If AD is greater than AS, it leads to inflationary gap, not deflationary gap. At the full employment level, if aggregate demand is more than aggregate supply, only this much supply is there, demand is more, so it leads to inflation. Whenever demand is more than supply, obviously it leads to inflation in the economy, inflationary gap. At the full employment level, if aggregate demand is less than aggregate supply, demand is not there, so then the prices will come down, it leads to deflationary gap. Let's see whether the statement is true or not. If AD is greater than AS, it leads to inflation, inflationary gap, so the statement is false. So what you're supposed to write, a deflationary gap exists when aggregate demand is greater than aggregate supply at full employment. You write this statement is false because if aggregate demand is greater than supply at full employment level, it leads to inflationary gap, not deflationary gap. And the last one for 2 marks, each one for 2 marks, APS can never be negative. Average propensity to save can never be negative. Why not? If consumption is more than savings in the economy, savings will be negative. So APS will be negative. APS will be S upon Y. If savings are negative, APS will be. So to give you more knowledge, in this case, you just write this much. APS can be negative when savings are negative or when consumption is more than income. So to gain more knowledge, I'll tell you at the break-even point, APS will be 0. Before the break-even point, consumption is greater than income, hence savings will be negative. So APS will be negative. That's it. Simple. That is before the break. After the break-even point, APS will be positive. APS can be 0. APS can be negative. APS can be positive. But APC can never be 0. Mind it, APC can never be negative. So that's all we have time for this video. Till we meet next time, it's goodbye from Saddam Hussein. Bye-bye.